Catherine is a cover girl on the week of her 44th birthday.
And this isn't in the script, but I wish you guys could have seen Rupert's face when I told him that Meghan Markle was going to release a cookbook. You missed a good one.
Good golly, Miss Molly. Right, there we go. Right. Thank you very much, Kinsey.
Welcome to Heirs and Spares, the show that dives into the fascinating world of two of the most recognized royal couples from both sides of the Atlantic. I'm Kinsey Schofield, and I'll be bringing you updates on the Prince. I almost said the Prince and Princess of Wales. I wish that was my gig. I've been gone for too long. Rupert, that's your gig. I'm on Harry and Meghan duty.
Oh, I'm the one getting old, not you. But I am reporting from a bitterly cold UK this week. And I've got all the news on the Prince and Princess of Wales. And given that we haven't been on for a couple of weeks, quite a lot to talk about, really.
There is. Let's jump into it. A really wonderful piece in the Times by Kate Manzi. Catherine will be a queen who really listens by Palace Insiders. And there was so much intel in this piece about Catherine. I started to make a list. I hope you're not annoyed with me because the list is as long as your legs. But let's talk about some highlights from that piece. I love the detail about the princess losing her phone all the time and how one Christmas, as a joke, all of the gifts were related to ways she could keep her phone attached to her. That's kind of a fun little piece of information about the Princess of Wales.
Well, I think we all have that conversation, don't we? Where's my phone?
Where are my keys?
Oh, where are the keys? Where are my phone? So it's good to know that she's like everyone else, sort of, thinks she's put it down. I mean, I don't know how much time I spend looking for my phone, but it's far too long. But it's good to know that the Princess of Wales has the same problem as the rest of us. Even though she's probably got people potentially cleaning up after her, she still can't remember where her phone is. Look, I don't know whether that's true. I've never been in the house and I've never seen her if she is running around for her phone. But it is something that certainly humanizes her in the sense that just like you or I, we're always doing it. And name me a person who has never once in their life gone, "Where's my flipping phone?" or words to that effect.
Yeah. The preview of the article says the past 12 months have been turbulent for the Windsors, but the Princess of Wales has emerged from her cancer treatment more popular than ever. How did she become the firm's most valuable asset? Pretend you haven't read the article. What would your answer be to that? How she became the firm's most valuable asset? Instinctually, what comes to mind when you think about Catherine? Well, first, do you agree with that? Do you agree that she's one of their most valuable assets? And then after that, tell me what
I,
characteristics she has that you really admire.
I think she's their primary asset. I don't think there's any two ways about it. The king is the king, and that's great, and he knows what he's about. But that comes with the territory. The Queen, Prince of Wales, we know we've missed her. Now, I think over the last year, it's sort of been said that she may have done 68 public appearances over this 12-month period. But my goodness me, everybody wants a piece of her. She is the star turn. And everybody, if she turns up, it will get eyeballs. And that is the important thing. The rest of the royal family, yes, they work hard. They're very dutiful. And I've got nothing but admiration for all of them who will work hard under quite difficult circumstances. But the big showpiece event is when the Princess of Wales is around, and we saw that over the Christmas period. When we're seeing her at her carol concert or when we're seeing her at Sandringham. Okay, we didn't see her any other time over this Christmas period, but you wouldn't have expected to. But more importantly, when she's out and about, events get a frisson of excitement. She is unequivocally the big turn for the royal family, and boy, does that annoy some people in California.
Yeah, those who shall not be named until we get to their part of the show.
Yeah.
Um, there. are some new stats in this article. A recent YouGov poll showed that Catherine is the most popular member of the family, 68% of people having a positive view of her. This is ahead of Prince William. This is a shift, actually, because once the Queen passed away, Prince William was the most popular member of the British royal family. I think that their dynamic is really charming because if you study 80s, 90s, Mountbatten Windsors, you hear the stories about the jealousy surrounding King Charles and Princess Diana. You don't see that here. Prince William is almost proud. I think he is. I think it's fair to say Prince William is proud of his wife's popularity. He celebrates it. He encourages it. So it's when you see those numbers shift, you realize that there's probably actually they are very competitive behind the scenes, but it's more along the lines of Scrabble. It's nice to know that Prince William is likely very excited for his wife when those polls come out, or at least supportive of her.
I think he would be very stupid if he didn't actually see that within the context of what the royal family is about, that she is the primary asset of that generation. She brings the stardust, everything, whatever she wears. There's a sort of people want to know, while that she may not like that side of it, but you can't get away from it. If you go back to the King and the Princess of Wales, Diana, that was a marriage that was floundering. So that when you've got the marriage falling apart, you can easily see why jealousy turns out, and if the things aren't all right at home. Now, with William and Catherine, they've just moved into their new home. They presumably that is a great comfort to them. So should have nothing but feeling positive about the future. For William, I think he knows that his primary asset is his wife, but he, on the other hand, is more likely to have to earn his popularity, and that means he's going to have to get in 2026. I don't know how many public appearances he made, but he will need to make sure he's as visible because they just released the statistics. And sorry, I've stumbled over that word, but the statistics and saying the King has even with cancer, has done more public events than the Princess Royal. So for William, I do think he's got to think about making sure he's visible to make sure that his popularity doesn't wane. And while for the Princess of Wales, I'm sure we'll see much more of her in the coming year, as long as her recovery is continuing in the fashion that it appears to be at the moment. Not that we know the details, but at least she appears to be looking out and about as normal as you can possibly hope to be. And hopefully that is a positive sign. So William knows he would be a right idiot if he didn't appreciate the work that his wife brings and the cachet she brings to the royal family.
Let's bookmark this because I think that there's a Harry element there, but I don't want to go there yet. So don't let me forget William's appearances when we get down to the Harry section of this chat. It says in the article that Catherine's cancer battle appears to have inspired her to talk about love, spirituality, and how to live a better life. Now, I firmly disagreed last year with Duncan Larcombe, and I believe it was Charles Ray, who said that the way Catherine was speaking towards the end of 2025 sounded too fluffy and like something we would criticize Meghan Markle for. I don't think so. I think Catherine has experienced something very frightening. Cancer is frightening on top of the entire world, demanding to know what's going on with you physically. I do appreciate the love, the spirituality and talking about go outside, stick your toes in the grass. Do you think, based on when you talk to people out in the UK, that there are a lot of people that feel the way that Duncan and Charles felt, that Catherine doesn't need to get too hippie to, vibes? Or do you think that, she has earned the right to based on the last 24 months of her life?
I think, anyone who suffers from cancer does contemplate their mortality. Okay, and that will bring into question, there she is approaching what, in a couple of days' time after we record this, I think it is her birthday. Good month to have a birthday. I would suggest Capricorns are good.
When is your
Slow and
birthday?
steady.
Are you saying that because
Very,
it's your birthday?
yeah, very shortly.
Happy
Very
birthday,
shortly.
Rupert.
Well, I think we will have recorded another one before my next birthday. But
Okay.
but Capricorns, slow and steady wins the race. Not that I'm a great believer in all that, but we're goats and we get to the mountain. But I think in her case, it is important that she does, just like the king has done, has mentioned about his, cancer and what it's done to brought his into attention and focus his mind, and why he's been quite open about talking about, the cancer, and the Princess of Wales has been doing likewise. So it's not a surprise, as long as it doesn't sound word salady, and actually, so far the indications are it does seem and feel heartfelt, and actually without saying, she knows what's helping her. And yes, she can afford, she's got a lovely, great park to walk around and can commune with nature easily, but it's not everyone can do this. And I think she does understand that and has said, just find a way. And I think it's important that when she's got young children, that would be scary anyway. Whoever you are, if you're recovering from whatever cancer she had and is still, it's not by any sense of the imagination you feel that we haven't heard that she's in remission and she's 100% cancer free. We don't know, and we're never going to know. But I think it's right that she has been able to touch on her feelings as to what has gone through. Because just as the king has said, it is important that you draw attention to something. And if you can use your position to help other people deal with whatever they've got, then that is a positive thing, as long as it doesn't feel forced. And the one thing I would say with the Princess of Wales, it doesn't seem she's not ramming it down our throat at every verse end.
No.
There are key moments when she does it, and then it feels that it will have, less is more. Make it powerful when you say something, not just come out with an endless drip feed of word salad. Rural things are important. And I live in a rural community. Admittedly, I am part iced and snowed in as I speak to you. I can't get off my hill at the moment due to the weather conditions around where I live, but that comes with the territory. We do have to understand, we are an animal like anybody else. Okay, we call ourselves human, but ultimately we live and die like any other animal. So, we are the same, and we have to find a way of living in harmony. And whatever the Princess of Wales says is a way. And it's interesting, the King is coming out with a documentary at some stage on Amazon Prime in the next month about exactly that. So you can see that the royal family as a whole are singing from the same hymn sheet, which is think about what's around you. And the Princess of Wales is doing exactly that. That was quite a long-winded answer, for which I apologise, but you
No,
get
the
where I'm
audience
coming
loves
from.
you and they've missed you for 2 weeks. They're getting their man back. One fun fact I found in this article was while William is known to WhatsApp his staff at the Duchy of Cornwall sometimes dozens of times over the weekend, Catherine is just as likely to call or email. I'm just like fascinated by the well, you and I WhatsApp each other. I'm like, oh, I wonder
Yeah.
if I can guess Prince William's WhatsApp. I just am
Well,
fascinated by the
no,
idea of
no,
Prince William
no,
on
that
WhatsApp.
well, no, that don't do that. That's not a good look. Okay, just no, you don't need to be doing that.
Sending
But
Prince William a chain letter if you
well,
don't forward this to 5 of your friends.
the important thing is Princess of Wales is spending half an hour trying to find her phone to WhatsApp. So that's why, and then the moment's gone by the sound of things, given how we started this program. Look, we all do. And why is he? If he's got an idea and something comes to him at a key moment, then he people do all the time, just as you and I do. So he run the Duchy of Cornwall is a very important part of his life, and he's got to make sure from a PR perspective that it's run properly. The royal family have been navigating a bad PR year with all the other stuff that's been going on. So, I think he's just like anybody else, WhatsApping, getting messages. Who doesn't do that now?
Oh, I
and
know.
why
I
should
know,
he
but
be any different?
you made the point earlier, and it's important. And I guess that's the reoccurring theme. Royals, just like us. Catherine losing
Yeah,
her
yeah,
cell phone, Prince William on WhatsApp talking to people over the weekend because he's had a brilliant
yeah.
idea. These are the things we're doing. The reason I love this information is because I can relate to it. It's making them more relatable. That's likely the entire point of this piece. Chocolate brownies, Prince William's favorite. That's a new thing that I learned in this article. That's fun information. But listen to this because maybe I should have flip-flopped these because it might take us into
Yeah.
Sussex territory. But Vogue published its 2025 best dress list and it described the Princess of Wales as an internal influencer and culture shaper whose quiet support can change the trajectory of a brand. That was a list that didn't include a certain someone in Montecito. That's in, that's one of those effortless values that the royal family has in the Princess of Wales. She's not trying to get in Vogue. She didn't care if she's in Vogue, but she makes Vogue, and they say that she's forever important to the business.
Well, just like her mother-in-law, her late mother-in-law. They are influencers and real influence, not the fake plastic one that we see most of the place around the world now. Her job is to look good on behalf of, the nation. In a sense, that's it, isn't it? In a nutshell, to get out there and, be a force for good. And if she can, by partly wearing, look, it's not my, as you know, and the viewers know, fashion is not on my pay grade, but I understand from a commercial point of view, it is important. So that's why every outfit is thought out, so that even when we saw them in the Highlands, in their casual wear, that would have been designer casual wear. It wasn't just like you and I, if we're going out for a walk. Well, what do we put my tracksuit on? What do I put on?
But actually,
You know.
Catherine is known for her high street fashion too. Again, a
Oh,
relatable moment, a relatable characteristic about her that people really love. That they spot her in something and they can run to, high street and they can grab the exact same dress.
well, I think that's important because the royals have to look relatable. They can't be seen to be going out endlessly in, designer frocks or whatever that cost, an arm and a leg and get worn once. That fine, there's a market for that, but and there will be a time and a place where she will wear something like that. If it's a hot brand name, she might wear it some glittering occasion. But if it's on the more run of the mill stuff, then she should be wearing, what is accessible to most people on the high street. And I think that's part of her function. Okay, that might sound a bit old fashioned, but we can't get away from it. We're talking about, she's on Vogue are describing her as a hugely influential fashion icon. And that's the point of her in many ways. And why we need her out there, because she brings that sparkle. And by what she wears at 44, she's looking, she's got her children look really happy. So that seems to be in a good place. Okay, they may be umming and ahhing about where they're going to go to school next. But, many ways, that's any parental problems. Back to what we all have. Where do we send our children to school? Okay, they send their children to a public school and can have the pick of the public schools, and they're not having to worry about the money for it. But they still will have the same discussions as any other parent. But when it comes to the Princess of Wales, in her royal capacity, she is the fashion icon. She brings stardust, and they need her out on the road as much as possible to help bring back the British public in fold and feeling that this royal family is a force for good.
Absolutely. One of the other revelations in the piece is that William and Catherine are not speaking to Prince Harry, continue to not speak to Harry and Meghan, and don't really see the value in it. They're protecting their peace, which I completely understand. One of my biggest takeaways from this article, so they talk about how when Catherine spoke to the chief scout in April, Dwayne Fields, she said she had a spiritual and intense emotional reconnection with nature. And, she's talking about what we've already talked about, how much she wants us all to spend time outside because it's healing. There's also conversation within this piece about how Catherine is campaigning along with Prince William. We actually heard it, I think, pretty sternly from Prince William in 2025, keeping children away from cell phones and social media. Rupert, these sound a lot like Harry and Meghan's campaigns here in the States. Meghan's in the garden. Meghan wants you to go in the garden. Harry and
Well,
Meghan in New York. My point is, they have similar priorities, allegedly. They have similar priorities when it comes to um I don't even can't
yeah,
I don't even know how I
yeah.
would describe this. But it couldn't work out because of Harry and Meghan's egos. I mean, as a team, they could have done really great work.
Oh,
But
uh,
Harry and Meghan's egos and hurt little feelings are so out
oh,
of control that they wasted this perfectly good opportunity to work with two William polls higher in the states than our elected officials, two respected, well put together, just sensible people.
well, and this is the point. They could have been a powerful four if they'd worked it out. But as you say, and they do have, we all understand the perils of too much social media. It's not a good place, and children should be kept away as much as possible. It comes down to parents' control. You can't police it to the extent that parents should insist, but often you see people even going to a restaurant. Children aren't engaging. They go to a restaurant. It's expensive to go out, and all you see is the young doing this, and you think, no, for an hour you sit down and you talk and enjoy each other's company. But it all, but that's me being a grumpy old man,
I wasn't
probably
going to
being.
say it.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. They're right about that. Yeah, that you should, so that you can talk and have fun. And I understand the Princess and Princess of Wales. Mealtime is a phone-free zone. Well, you might be checking up on the Aston Villa scores if they're sitting
Catherine
around for the
can't, Catherine
family.
can't even find her phone. Catherine can't even
Right.
find
Well, that's fine, but William probably does know where it is, and he's got the score. He's got score updates coming through. But you know what I'm saying is there is a time and place, and what they are trying to get a message on is that all things in moderation. And I think they are trying to be a positive influence because they are in a position as a family. They've got three children, trying to be role models, trying to bring them into the goldfish bowl of being a member of the royal family. And it's not easy. George knows his destiny already. It's not like you and I can suddenly say, we might have an idea when we were 11 or 12 what we might have wanted to do. But for George, it's not a discussion point. Ultimately, he will be the king. It probably means he has to go into the military in some way or do something, but he won't be able to clock on for a 9 to 5 regular job. Okay, I don't know, picking any job out. Go and work in PR, go and whatever mother may have worked in or some field. No choice, and that is what they've got to make sure that they prepare him for the goldfish bowl environment that he will be living in for all his life. And that's their big challenge. And I think they are, we saw the children at Christmas, and those Sandringham, okay, they've got a ready-made dedicated audience of people who just royal watchers. It seemed like they know every single one of them who turn up at Sandringham. But it was great to see the way George and Charlotte and Louis were sort of let loose a little bit, and
But
just
Louis with that
mingle.
giant chocolate, that was so
Yeah.
cute.
Well, I hope he didn't. If he ate it before lunch, I mean, he would have been running around Sandringham having a sugar explosion
You
that would
mean
have made him eat.
rolling around Sandringham?
Well, God knows. But anyway, well, it was, and those were very important moments. I think, in just as an example of the way they are trying to just drip feed them. Look, they were on very safe ground that day. It's not like suddenly walking down a high street where you don't quite know where the audience. That is Sandringham crowd on Christmas morning, our dedicated followers of the royal family, and then there's just a gaggle of media. So
That was
it
such
is
a
interesting.
beautiful video of Prince William staring back at Catherine as she was talking to people in line. He has this look on his face like he is so tickled by just watching her engaging with those people. You're right. I mean, it's the perfect experience for the kids and to ease them into this wild world that
Yeah.
they've been born into. But it is such a warm, beautiful feeling to watch
Mm.
those engagements on Christmas.
Well, and it was, we know what it's all about. We know the game. It's part of the sort of semi-private public tradition that the royal family have at Christmas. It is it's private, but has a very much a public message. Look, we're off to church. It's a Christmas thing, family in tow. Okay, inevitably there was a story about who wasn't there, and then we discovered Beatrice and Eugenia there, and so headlines over here. There was a distraction element, but I can assure you the Waleses did a pretty good job in ensuring there was some good positive headlines from the way their three children had the opportunity to interact in a brief but very easy and relaxed manner, and that was good. But it shows that they are protecting them, but gearing them up for what lies ahead. And the Princess of Wales's message with regard to social media and everything, yes, it chimes with what the Sussexes are trying to say, but they don't half say it in a much better way.
Well, also, it's just Harry and Meghan shoving it down our throats while Meghan uses the same tool to try to shill her jam. I mean, again, it's just
Yeah.
Harry and Meghan can't execute the way that William and Catherine execute. And they don't have the credibility. I mean, Catherine is working with people from Harvard, and this article goes into the great lengths that she goes into to find this information, the polling that they do, the research that Catherine does. Harry and Meghan throw a bunch of money at something and show up at the finish line and say, "We did this," when in the reality is they have not been a part of the process. William and Catherine are a part of the process, start to finish. There's a stability. Remember in that nasty article, I can't, maybe it was Vanity Fair, but someone says that Catherine has worked on the early years project in 11 years and hasn't accomplished anything. And look at what Meghan's accomplished since she left the royal family. And I'm like, what? Failed podcast,
Yeah.
failed reality show, whatever. Anyway, but there's a stability in the 11 to 12 years that Catherine's been doing the early years. And there's a confidence that the public has in Catherine because she is a part of everything from start to finish. And she works with people that she's confident are experts in that arena. You know, with Harry and Meghan, it's do as we say, not as we
Yeah.
do.
Well, in the Wales's case, that the projects that they're passionate about are not going to happen overnight. Prince William is passionate about homeless and trying to eradicate that. And you go, look, it's horrendous, but it's not. It's an idealistic challenge. But what he's trying to do is find ways that it can help people, through what he's putting out there to get back on their feet and in a way can back to having a normal life. So that's what, but it won't happen overnight. And it may back when he look back in 20 years, even if it's a small change, that will be positive. And the early years project from the Princess of Wales is important because if you get a good start early on, everyone says, all experts are saying, this doesn't half help you later on. So for what she's her intentions, but it's probably hard to judge because it's only 11 and 12, and you might only see if they do tests on people who benefited from that. It's only probably now that you might be starting to see some manifestation of that.
Yeah.
So I don't. These are long term projects that will be hard to quantify, but you need people to try and say, right, that's my mission. I'm going to try and make sure that young families have the opportunity to give their children the kind of start and that will afford them in good stead later on down the line.
Right. We appreciate Catherine committing to the early years project, just like Meghan Markle committed to 40 by 40. Crickets.
Um,
Crickets. Absolute freaking crickets. Oh my gosh. I have to tell you about a total game changer, Peak's Liver Detox Protocol. You may not know it, but your liver handles a lot: energy, hormones, digestion, and even your mood. But with all the stress and toxins from everyday life, it needs some love. Forget harsh cleanses. Peak delivers gentle daily support inspired by traditional Chinese medicine. Their routine uses two simple blends. The first is a warming turmeric mix with cinnamon and black pepper, designed to help the body absorb it better and support the liver while calming inflammation. The second is a ginger and cinnamon blend that helps with blood flow, digestion, bloating, and immune support. The magic is how they work together to activate and flush for better digestion, stable energy, less brain fog, and that light, clear feeling. My energy is consistent now, skin is clear, and less bloating. That's Peak, where spirit meets science. Redefine your standard of health. Secure 20% off your order and begin your intentional wellness journey today at peaklife.com/Kinsey. That's PIQUE life.com/Kinsey. Let's talk about the intruder that broke into the Prince and Princess of Wales Kensington Palace home not once but twice in 1 week. Rupert, how does this happen? The UK Metropolitan Police charged a man for breaking into the grounds of the Wales's London home before Christmas. This is Derek Egan. He's 39 years old, and he was charged with trespassing on a protected site and breaching bail conditions. He did not gain access to the primary residence of Prince William and Catherine. They were not home at the time of the incident. He was seen on security footage by palace guards who detained him until the police arrived. He did later admit to trespassing on the grounds. This is not the first time this has happened, but you and I've been to Kensington Palace. You wonder how somebody's getting close enough to get arrested.
Well, it's not. I think sometimes these headlines are slightly misleading, bearing in mind that the Wales's primary residence
It's
now
in Windsor now, yeah.
is Windsor. Of course, other members of the royal family live there. So actually, you want to be saying breaking into Kensington Palace. Whether he was going for the Prince and Princess of Wales, I don't know. But breaking into Kensington Palace is not a good look for the security. And you want, how does it, for him to get in twice, which does seem to me to be a little bit careless. And he was put out on bail. So for me, I wouldn't be saying that, it was going to get to the Prince and Princess of Wales, because if he had anything about him, he'd know that they wouldn't be there. It was a few days before Christmas. They're in Christmas holiday mode. They might even be in Norfolk.
But isn't that the perfect time? Yeah. Isn't that the perfect time when you know somebody's on vacation to raid their silver?
I have had friends who that has exactly happened over the Christmas periods. The thieving gits, not obviously, so I know, people do this and it's horrendous, and they, find opportunities when people are away but there probably might have been other members of the royal family living within the palace, Kensington Palace. So they might have been just as under some sort of security threat. It's not a good look. Where the Prince and Princess of Wales, it's an easy headline. Look, they're going to their home. Well, that's wrong, because let's be honest, that's not their home.
Do you remember last year when there was the headline dead body found near William and Catherine's house? I was like, what? That's an episode of Dateline I'd be willing to watch. And then it was found such and such miles from Kensington Palace. I'm like, okay, that's a stretch, ladies and gentlemen.
Look, and we know people look for it's Kensington Palace. Is that where the Prince and Princess of Wales live? Well, not very often, but
used to be,
but not very often. But we'll make that the headline. So I think there's an element of that around that. But it doesn't actually excuse the fact that this bloke was able to get in twice, which is something the security around Kensington Palace, the people there need to just raise their game.
Well, let's talk about security because
Hmm.
as I
Yeah.
saw you reporting over the weekend, according to sources close to the Sussexes, Prince Harry they're expected to announce that Prince Harry won his fight for his round the clock security detail armed security to be restored. This is something that you, as a UK taxpayer, will have to front. I feel like if I were in your position, I'd be irritated. Harry has proven himself to be incredibly reckless since Megxit, whether he's writing about his Taliban kills or, you know, stirring up political animosity in the same year where we've had political assassinations here in the States. This would frustrate me. Is Keir Starmer's, and this isn't, like you said, it's not a political conversation, but there are reports that this is Keir Starmer's administration that wanted to reevaluate this, and it's likely because it's Keir Starmer's team. Ravik did reevaluate it and said, "Sure, we'll give you exactly what you're asking for."
Well, this is where I get torn. It's about the only time I get torn around Harry and security. Yes, he's left, but he is still a member of the royal family. You can't ignore that. So he is still a person of interest. So I do think he needs to be made sure that he has proper security. Where I then start to fall down on this with him is his security is reviewed anyway when he comes here. So it's not as if he'd suddenly be left to uh, to his own devices. He would be saying, right, I'm doing this, and it will be analysed on a case by case basis. I think it's his way of saying a little bit of a of Pyrrhic victory for him in that he's got something and he's finally found a way to make himself feel, well, look, eventually they crumbled. And yes, they may have crumbled, but will it make a jot of difference? Will it mean that he will come with his family? Well, if he does come with his family, I'm not sure Meghan has shown any inclination to board a commercial or private jet to this country in the intervening period to bring her children. And if I was the royal family, if this is the reason that he will now feel safe, yes, bring them, but I don't want to hear a word about it ever. You
Yeah.
know, this,
I think that it's less. I don't think Harry will bring the children to see King Charles in the next 12 months. There were reports in the Sun this week that said Harry actually has the audacity to want the king to visit them in Montecito when he's in the United States in April, visiting with President Trump. Well, no, if got your security all fixed in the UK, then get your own butt on a plane and go to the UK to see him. I think based on what we saw in 2025, Harry pushing that half in, half out, Williams in Rio, Harry shows up in Canada, that Harry's going to use this to try to have a rival court, that Harry wants to try to force the half in, half out issue. And he just wants this UK guaranteed security so that he can do more charity
well,
work in the UK. I mean, honestly, you have to admit that the majority of the time he's over there now, he's in a courtroom. He's fighting someone
yeah.
legally, not for the greater good, but for personal reasons. I shouldn't disparage charity work, but I do because Harry uses the charity work to prop his commercial ventures up. Blink and Toronto, and you're waking up to Prince Harry back because he's at a Toronto Hilton taking pictures with real estate
Well,
people. Like Harry uses his charity work to build his commercial brand. That is a conflict of interest in the exact reason why the Queen said no half in, half out. I think that
uh,
he was jealous that he didn't have something William had, and I think he's going to try to compete with William and distract from the truly good work that the working royal family does in the UK.
well, I know it, and they've got to try and restore their credibility. And brand Sussex depends on their link to the royal family. And this is a sort of easy way of saying, look, well, I'm being treated as a member of the royal family with my security. So we're still very much, can play it. I have within the royal family, I'm seen as a figure. Now, not a working figure, And this is why I think, yes, you come
But
here.
perception is reality, Rupert, and
Yeah,
he looks
yeah,
like a working royal when he's over there
yeah.
playing with kids and balloon swords.
Well, anywhere he goes, he looks like he's trying to be the royal official, but nothing is sanctioned and agreed. So this is why it is annoying. But I do have sympathy for the security issue. But it's the what's at the heart of it is misplaced because they could come here. There wouldn't be a problem. And that's what gets me a little bit riled because they could still come here. They would be afforded protection because if they went to Sandringham or if they went to Balmoral, there's all the security you need. Okay, and so it is such a diversionary assessment. And
And
so
just them
it,
manipulating
yeah,
people with their victimhood narrative.
yeah, and making it seem like Britain is unruly and unsafe. Well, he's been to Nigeria. He's been to
Colombia.
Colombia. Given what's next door to Venezuela and heaven offend, we've got all going on. So you really just wonder, occasionally, there is a game. He just wants to push the envelope and rattle cages at all times, and this is what annoys people, and particularly in this country that that there is, he wants to keep on digging and keep jibing. He can't find a way of not. We saw it on countless occasions, even sort of veiled digs here and veiled digs there, just annoying.
Yeah.
So if he gets it, what will come of it? Will he bring his children over here? Yes. But what we don't need after a 54 meeting with the king, him going running off to the BBC to do an interview.
Do you really think he'll bring his children over there? I don't think Meghan would
No,
allow him to.
no. Well, no, and I'm not busting a gut in anticipation that this will happen,
Mm-mm.
but that's what he says he wants to do. Well,
Right.
the proof in the pudding is then bring them over. Now
Mm-hmm.
you've got it. What are you worried about? Now
Right.
there'll be some other excuse. There
Mm-hmm.
will be,
No, you're right.
and
I think that the kids thing, I'm afraid. Remember he said on the BBC he was afraid somebody would throw acid at his wife. Who says that out loud?
uh,
I just
well, that could happen anyway. That could happen even in
you live in the
Montecito.
United States where we have
Yeah,
the worst gun crime in the world.
yeah. Well,
And
yeah, it's just ridiculous that he even, this is where I look. Things bad happen here. Things bad happen everywhere. But really, this is where you just think he's always trying to rattle cages and prove that he's always right. But basically it's sort of like a war of attrition. Sort of be, oh God, I'll just give him the security, and then he may shut up. Well, he doesn't know how to shut up because he can't afford to not shut up because he's got to be seen to be relevant. Because Brand Sussex in 2025 took one hell of a beating.
mm-hmm. Senebale, rest in
Hmm.
peace. Let's talk
Yeah.
about Meghan Markle being named the most disappointing celebrity of 2025. Speaking of Brand Sussex, by her former hometown paper, the Toronto Star. Toronto Star loved Meghan. Toronto loved Meghan. In fact, she was claiming she was going to move to Canada in the midst of
Yeah.
Megxit before they pivoted and decided they wanted to be Hollywood stars. This was probably a harsh burn for her. Do you think that she's aware of this headline?
Well, she's aware of everything.
Do you agree? Do
Then,
you agree that I mean,
well,
basically
she's
the story is that she had all of the pieces in place and that everything, kind of blew up in her face because she doesn't know what the hell she's doing.
no, she doesn't know what she's doing. And I imagine Harry's not going to be talking to many more real estate agents in Toronto. Wasn't it that where he went to talk to real
Yes,
estate
yeah.
agents? So I imagine he might not be going there again. He won't be allowed to, I don't think. For if the Toronto Daily Star is trashing his wife like that. Look, she has.
They'll go wherever the money is, Rupert.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know that
that,
as well
yeah.
as I do.
Show me the money, and they will go. And I have to say, they have had a disappointing year. She did have the chance, but she hasn't got the talent to see it through. And she thinks it will just come to her. And it's like, I don't need to work hard. I keep saying this. Unfortunately, every person who is successful has probably had their head down for some time before they get that break, but they've had an idea, and yes, and they've had to work hard for it. She has expected everything to come from. Now, just before Christmas, they rebrand their charity so that somebody else runs it for them,
Yeah.
so that they can't, that now it becomes, they've got
So
some big,
they won't be held accountable when it
you know,
fails.
yeah,
Classic.
and that
Can I
that's the
can I
thing.
say something really quick?
Yeah,
I'm in a new Channel 5 documentary called Meghan. I saw part 1 on Saturday. Part 2 comes out next
yeah.
Saturday. And I don't necessarily agree with the narration. Like to
Uh,
your point, one of the people says, you're thrown in this documentary. You don't know what it's going
yeah.
to say. You hope that all your sound bites make it. They don't. But
Mm.
there's one person that talks about how Meghan does all the hard work, and Meghan succeeded because she does all the hard work. Meghan is a social climber. Meghan recognizes, I don't believe Meghan does the hard work. I think she doesn't do her due diligence. I feel like if the last 5 years have taught us anything, it's that. I think Meghan is savvy in the sense that she sees the people she needs to help her climb the ladder. And when they're no longer useful to her, she cuts them off at the knees and she burns that bridge. But to your point, and I was pulling my hair out as I was watching this, and all these people
Mhm.
were saying these nice things about her, and I'm like, I don't agree with this, and I can't fight with them.
Well,
But
you're
like,
obviously the counterpoint, aren't you? You're the, basically it's designed to. Well, didn't watch the first part, so I can't possibly comment. So I'm sorry to have missed your contribution in the first part.
it's
But it
okay.
comes down to the same thing. As ever, didn't they? They got the name wrong there. What was the first brand? Forever, whatever
American
it was going to
Riviera
be.
Orchard,
And then they couldn't, So if are all these people working hard, we should have come to and said, we've done our due diligence. American Riviera Orchard,
not an
you
option.
know, off we go, or not an option. You can't do that. As ever, well, we got a place in a shop in New York complaining about it or whatever. Just so many mistakes along the
Think
way.
about all of the emails people have received that the product that they paid for, the money has already been removed from their bank account, doesn't exist. So you can either wait patiently for who knows when for Meghan to have said honey, or you can receive a refund. I mean, there are so many hiccups within this brand that are unacceptable, especially if you truly are partnering with Netflix, which we do believe to be a stable organization. It was killing me while people were talking about Meghan's work ethic and all of this stuff. I'm just thinking, no, is she's stubborn. It's her way or the highway. She thinks that she is the smartest person in the room all the time. And literally, the way she has floated through life is, first of all, I'd say that the men in her life have helped her out immensely, Trevor Ingleson, Prince Harry. But also, she recognizes when people are valuable to her, Jessica Mulroney, and when they're no longer of value to her, they simply disappear. That she ghosts them, she blocks them, she changes her phone number.
I'm not going to disagree because the history suggests you almost want to question what planet are the other people on who are defending her,
What
because
are you on ayahuasca too? That's what I want to
uh,
say. Are you also on
well,
ayahuasca?
well, I'll watch this program, and now that you're featuring in it, and maybe give us some comment next week as to
Can I tell you my
where.
favorite part? My favorite part
Yeah,
was, and I didn't understand why they included this. They go into a whole thing of who Ashley Cole is because Meghan told a
the
tabloid
footballer.
reporter that he had DM'd her. This is Cheryl Cole's
Yeah,
ex.
it's passed me by, but I will check it out and try and understand how they've managed to find. They presumably haven't spoken to many communications directors in recently because they can't keep track of them. Been there long enough to talk to them, as we've seen
Oh, well,
going.
I do know that
Oh,
somebody that
well, you got.
currently does work for them contacted these producers and asked them who all was participating and if they could contribute. And they clearly do contribute because so much of Meghan's
Yeah.
narrative is throughout this documentary. Like they talk about Meghan being affected by the Rodney King riots. Rupert, she cannot hijack a
Oh,
she cannot hijack this cultural moment as her origin story. And there are
Oh,
people, Google it, in Los Angeles that are so irate over her trying to
oh,
hijack this cultural horrible moment as her origin story. You sell freaking jam for a living. Leave
well,
Rodney King out of it. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, absolutely. You should, she thought it was good PR. But this is
Yes.
that, but she doesn't listen to her PR people. And we know that all the time. And it's all systematic of the factors they get through staff. Like, people have hot dinners, so regularly, and this latest one, she looked like she was, and then another guy's left who was involved in the charity. He'd been there for a long time.
Yeah.
He's now given up, and he says he wants to get back to England. You've got to, and we say this regularly, they've got to start looking at themselves, but they haven't the ability to, because Meghan's all controlling. Harry does his wife's bidding, I would suggest. That you see these pictures at Instagram and everything, which all look a bit staged. They are not a significant family. I think we talked about Christmas cards and things before, and pictures, how they've sort of tried to produce happy family pictures, but they just look a bit weird,
Yeah.
in my eyes.
Right.
So the whole thing about Meghan is a narrative that she can't is not being able to control. Her program that we saw before Christmas was an absolute horror show, as far as I was concerned. Does anybody out there think after? I'd like to know any viewers, given that we haven't done a program for a couple of weeks, who did anything that Meghan suggested on the program. If you did, if it worked, fair play.
If
But
it
if you
did,
did
you
have,
can look forward to Meghan Markle's new cookbook in 2026.
so help me God. I mean, what? I mean, oh no. You did warn me, but I'll give the viewers mine. I'll go through what you said to me. Before we recorded this, you said, I've got something for you. And I went, oh, hello. And she went, oh, Meghan's going to be launching a cookbook. I basically said, what WTF?
He did
Because
say that.
I can't possibly believe, you know, we know Pippa Middleton tried one, right? Didn't she?
Well, hey, you
It
know what?
didn't
We
go.
need to be fair. Megan had one that she did with the British royal family, and it's actually
That was a good cause.
that is the most successful endeavor she had with the British royal family. But times have changed. Okay.
And that was around the horrible Grenfell fire tower, which was horrendous. It was really horrendous. And she then produced a cookbook, I think, to raise funds for the victims of that fire. And that would have, absolutely right. And actually shows, and this is what's so irritating, she could have been a force for good if she stuck around. This next cookbook might be good because it might be saying, right, we're going to give the proceeds, I don't know, to Centre Barley.
No,
Also,
no, that's not what they're going to do.
no, she's just going to pocket the money.
Yep.
Show me the money again. And but who's coming up with the recipes?
Well, no,
Because
I
I
mean,
do,
it's reported that it's going to be what you saw in With Love Megan,
uh,
and
uh,
and I know that what we saw in With Love Megan ain't nothing to write home about. Spend 30 minutes on Pinterest, and you've caught up.
ain't nothing to write home about, girlfriend. If that's the way you were about to say that, then I thought, sorry, it was my attempt at a bit of American. How embarrassing
It's
that was.
great.
But
It was
anyway,
great. It was great.
but the point being, if we're being told how to chop up broccoli in a recipe book, so help me God, and and her Christmas tips. No, mm, please don't send me a copy. And
It is your birthday
I
month. It's your birthday month.
yeah, yeah, but how quickly will it be down to, when you go on to any big seller and it's the price of a book, it's reduced from £19.99 and so you can get it for £3.99. How quickly will that book be cut back to that level of price, do you think?
That's a really great question. I also wonder if she will be resentful that it's not guaranteed it won't be as successful as Spare. I mean, Spare was the fastest selling
Oh,
book And I
But it's
let me
bound to
tell
be.
you, the only reason why I was thinking about that recently too is because I went to check on the aviation awards to see when they are this year.
Yeah,
They're the
yeah.
23rd. I imagine Harry will be there again. He was there last year and accepted an
23rd.
award the year before that. And
23rd of which month?
this
This
month.
month.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I was looking because I was like, it's almost time for the aviation awards. I wonder if they've made any announcements about Prince Harry. So I went to their website. They've got a bio on Harry there, and the bio is written by a very, very skilled PR person. That's probably what Meredith Maines did in the 7 months that she was there,
Yeah.
craft this bio. But they talk about how Spare was such a huge success. I think that Meghan would be envious of when her book comes out. There's just no way it's going to compete with something like Harry's. And I think that she would be jealous of the success Harry had compared to what's going to happen when this cookbook comes out. Because it's going to be like, I think she'll use it as a chance to try to rebrand. How many times has she done that since we've known her?
Oh,
It happens about every 3 months now. Maybe she'll do the morning shows like to the Today Show, Good Morning America. Um, but I just think like stop kicking a dead horse, that poor horse. Like stop
no.
kicking it. Like we're sick of you. And this is not the right outlet for you.
Wait, she's not getting another cooking program, is she? You haven't heard any, well, no, because Netflix would have, they might have come
I
back
think
with a,
that they would have been filming it in November if it was going to be released this year because they filmed it in November of 2024 for their 2025 release.
right. Okay. So they did both series in that month, did they?
Yeah.
And a special.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Anyway, well, if you haven't heard any, I don't think that Netflix don't seem to have, and I'm sure would have announced already that we're planning another one if they've been filming it. That would have been leaked and said, look, many of you met, but Netflix persisting with it. Well,
And then Megan not being included in the pop-ups, the Netflix pop-ups throughout the last few months, at
yeah.
the malls. I think that that's not a great sign either.
Well, I think all in all, they need to have used these 2 weeks. Look, obviously, she presumably has had. I don't know what's been going on with her father. I'm glad that we haven't heard or read anything about that. That has gone quiet, and that is good. And hopefully, Thomas Markle is on the road to getting slightly better. And has there been communication? We don't want to hear anything about that. If there has, don't want to hear anything about it. I want her to be doing the decent thing and prove that she can do something without, you know, having to have it all bells and whistles and blazoned everywhere. If she is doing things quietly, then fine. But we don't know. And in many ways, I don't really want to know
Yeah.
because it was a bit of a freak show before Christmas when, people from the embassy turning up in Philippines and, going to the hospital. The whole thing was so unedifying. So hopefully Christmas has been a time for the Sussexes to regroup. They wouldn't have had many family there with them. Yes, they might have had a few friends, but family would have been a little thin on the ground, I'm pretty sure. Um,
I'm wondering if Lily's godfather, Tyler Perry, was there while the headlines were surging that he was accused of another sexual harassment incident
well,
with one of his former employees who's taking him to court for like $70 million for sexual harassment. Harry and Meghan always doing their due diligence, giving their daughter
well,
a godfather who's constantly in the news for sexual harassment. Thank you guys.
well, not a good look. And I don't know enough about him because I think he did a sort of B movie stuff, which I think
You better
he
take
was.
that back. I love Medea movies.
Yeah, yeah, I know you do watch some trash, don't you, Kinsey? But anyway, at least you're consistent.
Yeah.
Christmas must have been manna from heaven. You must have just been putting the and sitting down there watching God knows what. But for Meghan, I hope they've used this period of 2 weeks for quiet reflection and think, have we done anything? What do we need to do to get us claw our way back in the eyes of public opinion? They've got a long way to go. They are so far down that rung. But people can restore their reputations. but it needs to be the long road, the quiet road, the hard-working road. Then maybe they will have a chance. But I'm not holding my breath.
Agree with us, disagree with us, let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. I know you missed Rupert as much as I did on the holiday break, so make sure you show him a lot of love in the comments below.
Happy New Year, everyone.
I'll see you again next week.